How you doing, good people? This is the 8-Bit Animal. Okay, so in the late 80s and very early 90s, Capcom and Konami both released a string of beat 'em ups. And both did really, really good beat 'em ups. And Capcom, who we're going to focus on today, well, one of their games, they were really good at releasing these medieval themed beat 'em ups, whereas Konami had these licenses that they would touch, like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Bucky O'Hare, stuff like that. Well, today's game is a Super NES port of a Capcom beat 'em up that was centered around a really well-known medieval story. Today's game, I don't know if you can see that, but Knights of the Round. Now, Knights of the Round featured the arcade mode, arcade version, featured 3 players on some cabinets, 2 players on others. And you would play as King Arthur, who was the more balanced of the fighters, Lancelot, who was the speed character, and Percival, who was the power character. Now, Knights of the Round shared something with Capcom's other medieval themed beat 'em up at this that came out around this time, King of Dragons, in that it featured a leveling system. And after a certain level, after levels, you would do a tally of your experience points and money pickups, things of that nature. And you would level up based on the number of experience points you would gain. Your character will become stronger, his armor would change, stuff like that. And that gave Knights of the Round a really interesting feel, something that wasn't really seen in a lot of beat 'em ups at that point. Knights of the Round also featured a lot of different, interesting character types, the ability to ride on a horse while fighting enemies, which you hadn't seen in a beat 'em up since the little known Capcom beat 'em up Dynasty Wars, which was centered around the same story as the later beat 'em up franchise from Tecmo Koei. Knights of the Round, and this King Arthur storyline or whatever, it had nothing to do with the semi-popular syndicated animated series King Arthur and the Knights of Justice. That actually got its own Super NES title, which was nowhere as fun as Knights of the Round was. And Knights of the Round went on to become one of Capcom's more popular Super Nintendo beat 'em ups. It graphically and sound-wise, actually, it was pretty on par with the arcade title. The sprites were a little more colorful in the arcade title, but overall, it had the same feel and the same. It had the same attitude of the arcade title, and that's what was important about what was going on the 16-bit consoles at this point. That the arcade, this was the first time that arcade perfect titles or near perfect titles were coming home. And titles like Knights of the Round and King of Dragons, stuff like that, they really piggybacked off of the popularity of their arcade counterparts. Now, Knights of the Round, it's not a terribly expensive game. I guess you could find a copy floating around. It's not, it's one of those things, I kind of stumbled into my copy. But you can find copies of Knights of the Round in a bunch of different places. Just, you shouldn't have to pay more than $15 for a copy. I say 15 because Super NES titles tend to be a little more pricey than NES titles were. This has been the 8-Bit Animal. I'll catch you beautiful people tomorrow.